So we have come to the point in this unit where we will put everything that we have learned together to work on a meaningful program. So this program that we will be looking at is called the Fizz program, and what it does, it basically asks the user to enter an integer, and it will proceed to print starting from 1 all those integers up to the number that the user has entered. Okay, so if I start at 1 and I end at 100, then I should print 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 all the way up to 100. But there's a twist to this problem. We want to do a bit of substitution. So wherever you have a number that is a multiple of 3, for example here, you should instead print the word fizz instead or in place of the number. Okay, so 5, where? 6, so fizz. Likewise, if you get to a number that is a multiple of 5, then you should print the word buzz instead of that number. So here, instead of printing 5, we print buzz. And finally, if you get to a number that is both a multiple of 3 and 5, then instead of printing that number, we print fizz buzz. Okay? And finally, if you find out that you have printed 20 numbers, then you should skip a line. Okay, so notice here in the example, I print 1 up to buzz, which is 20. And so since I have printed 20 numbers, the next line should begin here. Okay? So after every 20 numbers or words being printed, you skip a line. Okay, so this is the program that you want to work on. Let's begin. So the first thing we're going to do is to ask the user to enter an integer. Okay, and then we will need to convert the user input to an integer. Okay, because as usual it's a string, we need to convert it to an integer. So we will say number is input, enter an integer. Okay, so let's convert that integer. Int number is int number. Okay, great. So these two steps are easy enough. We've been doing them for quite a long time. So let's decide how we will actually I should say enter the maximum value. So let's do that. Enter the maximum value. Okay, so now we must decide how we will print from 1 to 100. Okay, so we will need to print the numbers from 1 to the number that the user entered. Okay, so whenever you're writing a program that's kind of vague or nebulous, you want to actually start with the simple things. So I would say, how can I do this? How can I ask the user to enter a number? And how can I print those numbers from 1 to 100? So let's try that. So I know I can use a for loop because I know how long or how many times I will use the loop, because it's telling me I should print the number 100 times. So I will say for I in range, I'm going to start at 1 and I will end at int number plus 1, because remember the last number is always 1 short, And we don't want it to only print to 99. We want it to print to 100, right? And keep in mind, this is just an example. Our program should work with any number that the user enters. Okay? So if the user enters 10, it should still work. Okay, so let's print I. Okay, so step one, let's see how this works. Enter a value, let's say 25. Alright, so it prints 1 to 25. Okay, not exactly what we wanted, but we are getting there, right? We can get the input from the user successfully. We can print the numbers. But print seems to be putting the numbers on a new line, right? So 1 is on one line, 2 is on the other line. So if you want to keep the numbers on the same line, meaning you want the 1 and then the 2 beside it and then the 3, then Python, the print function, provides a means to do that. And that means is using the end name or argument. So we say end equal, okay? And then we specify how we should separate the things we are printing on the same line. And since we are separating by a space, I'll put a space, okay? So let's look at this, alright? So whenever you want to print something and have them print on the same line, you use the end argument with an equal sign, and then what will separate those things? I could put maybe a dash. Let's see what it looks like with a dash. Let's say 15, right? But we usually put a space. Okay, so if I do this again and I put 15, okay, we're making progress. So we know we need this end in there. But instead of printing 3 and 5 and 15 and anything that is a multiple, I should print the word fizz or buzz or fizz buzz. So it means I need to check to see when the number that I am currently at, I, is either 3, a multiple of 3, a multiple of 5, or a multiple of 15. So that, to me, that sounds like a condition. I need to check for some condition. Okay, so what I will do, I will say if and let's start off with the bigger one. Let's say 15. So if I, how do you know if something is a multiple of a number? Well, you just say modulus, right? So if I modulus 3 gives me 0, right? So for example, if I say 3 modulus 3, 0. So we know 3 is a multiple of 3. If I say 6 modulus 3, 0. So if I take the I and I find the modulus of 3 and it gives me 0, then I know it's a multiple of 3. So if it's a multiple of 3 and it's a multiple of 5, right? Meaning it's a multiple of 15. So if a number is a multiple of 3 and a multiple of 5, then by extension it is also a multiple of 15. Okay? But I'm being explicit. I'm going to check for both of them. But I could have easily done this. If I modulus 15 is 0, then we're going to do something. But I want us to see exactly how we're working it out. And alright, so if I modulus 3 is 0, which means that I is a multiple of 3, and notice I have to say and, not or. And I modulus 5 is a multiple of 0, then we know that we're fulfilling this portion, right? For numbers which are multiple of both 3 and 5, print fizz buzz. So what I want to do, I want to print the string fizz buzz. Okay, let's see how this works out. All right, let's see how this works out. So, oh, it's telling me something is wrong. So 1, 2, 3, 4. All right, we always need 4 spaces after a colon. All right, so let's click play. Let me enter 15. And notice it prints Fizz Buzz. It should have printed the other numbers too. Alright, well, else print I. Okay, let's see if that does the trick. 15. Alright, seems to do the trick. Alright, so we can't use else though, because remember, we have to check now to see if it's only a multiple of 3, right? So if it's a multiple of 3, we want to print Fizz. So let's do that. So my question is, should we use another if or should we use an elif? Well, are they mutually exclusive? Well, yes, they are. Alright, if it's a multiple of 3 and 5, then we will print Fizz Buzz, which means we do not also want to check to see if it's a multiple of 3 or 5. Right? If I do this instead, if I say if I modulus 3 is 0, then print Fizz. Okay. Okay, let's see what happens. If I put 15, okay, it's gonna give me Fizz and Fizz, right? Which is 6, 3, 6, 9, 12, and it gives me Fizz Buzz, and then it gives me Fizz. So that's not what I want. Alright, I want the bigger one to take hold. So if it's a multiple of 15, do Fizz Buzz and stop right there. Alright, go on to the next number. But currently I am checking for 15, and again I'm also checking for 3. Not what we want. So what I should do here is to say elif, which means that if this fails, meaning that it's not a multiple of 3 and 5, then I want to check to see if it's a multiple of 3. Okay? Okay. So notice we are getting closer to our solution, right? So Fizz, 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 Fizz Buzz. Great. So let's add to this. Let's check if it's a multiple of 5. If I modulus 5 is 0, then I want to print Buzz. Okay. Alright, so let's see what that gives us. Let's put 15. We get Fizz, we get Buzz, we get Fizz, we get Fizz, Buzz, Fizz, Fizz Buzz, right? So obviously it's not taking into account all the numbers, so we're skipping a lot of the numbers. For example, we skipped 1, we skipped 2, alright? But we can get that easily. So we can just say else print what? Print the number, which happens to be I, and then we do our space. Okay, so if it's a multiple of 15, do print it, Fizz Buzz. Now if it's not a multiple of 15, then we're going to check to see if it's a multiple of 3. If it is, print that, and then we're done. If we don't find that it's a multiple of 3, we'll check to see if it's a multiple of 5. If it is, well, we'll print that, Buzz. But if we find out that it fails this, and it fails this, and it fails this, then it means that it must just be another number. A number that is not a multiple of 3 or 5 or 15. So I am just going to print that number. Alright, so we have 1, 2, Fizz, 4, Buzz, Fizz, 7, 8, Fizz, Buzz, 11, Fizz, 13, 14, and Fizz, Buzz. So it seems to be working. Now, we're almost done, but it says after every 20 numbers being printed, we want to skip a line. Now let's see if this works. If I print, I said 21, right? Let's expand this. Right. Unfortunately, it's printing all 21 numbers or words on the same line. Not what I want. After this buzz, it should have put this fizz on the next line. So let's fix that. And so how do you fix that? Well, that's where our individual else or if comes in. So I will create an independent if, right? So an independent if to check if we should skip a line. Okay, so after we have printed either fizz buzz or fizz or buzz, the last thing we need to do is to check to see if after printing that number or word, if the next one through the loop should be on a new line. And that's easy, right? If I modulus what? Modulus 20 is 0, it means we have printed 20 numbers. So for example, when I get to 40, that's also modulus 20 is also 0. So what am I going to do? I'm going to say print a new line. Alright? And that's it. So let's see if this fixes our problem. Let's put 45. Alright, so let me draw this over here to see. Alright, 19, 20, 38, 39, 40, 41, 42, 43, 44, and 45. So it does print only 20 numbers or words on each line. So you might be asking, why couldn't I put this or this first, followed by this one last? Alright, so you're asking, could I have said if I modulus 3 is 0, print fizz, and then elif I modulus 5 is 0, print buzz, and finally elif I modulus 3 is 0 and I modulus 5 is 0, print fizz buzz. Well, it turns out you can't do that, because if you put fizz buzz at the bottom, then when you get to 15, right? So if you, for example, you printed 15, right here. Well, if I had this 3 or 5 first, and I said if I modulus 3 is 0, print fizz, well, 15 is a multiple of 3, so it would have printed fizz. And because we're having an if elif else construct, it would not have checked for 5, or it would not have checked anything else. So it would have stopped and said, you know what, 15 is a multiple of 3, so let's just print fizz, which is not what we wanted. We wanted for multiples of 3 and 15 to print fizz buzz, and the only way to do that is by putting that check first. Okay, so this is the only way it works, if you put it first. Like I said, you could have always changed this and simply said if I modulus 15 is 0, print fizz buzz. Okay, so keep in mind this is just one possible solution, and the tricky part is this one. Alright, this one, this check I'm doing is independent of what I am doing up here. It's still inside the loop, but it's not related to the actual Fizz or buzz being printed. All right, it does a separate job, so it should be out of this grouping of conditionals. All right, so notice it's by itself, it's independent. So we'll print either Fizz or buzz or Fizz buzz or the number, and then we come down here and check to see if we should skip a line so that when you come back and look for the next number, then it might be on a new line or not. Okay, so I hope this makes sense. Notice how I solved this problem. I didn't just jump right in and start coding the solution. No, because that's not how it works in the real world. In the real world, you will read the specifications and you will start creating a basic fulfillment of the specifications, or a basic fulfillment towards the specification, and then you iterate and you add more code, you work out the problems, the bugs, the errors, the mistakes, you test, and until finally you come up with a satisfiable or suitable solution. Okay, and that's how you solve problems. Great. So that brings us to the end of this section or video where we put all the concepts together. Notice I am using conditionals, which we learned in the last unit, and I'm incorporating it with looping, which we learned in this unit. Alright, I'll see you in the next video where we actually start looking at the concepts in terms of solving problems, right, which we refer to as test your learning. See you then.